All right, what's up, boys? It's Keg from Rum Pure Bets with a little UFC 259 main event, co-main event breakdown. All right, so let's get into it. Let's pull up the odds, see what we could see here. All right, so the main event, Israel Adesanya, the middleweight champion of the world, against Jan Blachowicz, the current light heavyweight champion. I said this earlier, Jan's had a really interesting UFC career path because initially he really struggled in the UFC. He had only won 2 of the first 6 fights in the UFC, and he was getting into that dangerous territory where the promotion really wasn't sure should they keep him or should they drop him. But then he went and he fought Devin Clark, and he completely turned his career around. It was really journeyman-like. He just built win after win after win until people propped their head up and noticed, and they were like, look at Błachowicz on a run. So, he's been really respected overall in the betting marketplace. He's been the dog in 8 of his last 11 fights. But, Jan is a really well-rounded light heavyweight fighter, in my opinion. Everybody knows about that, heavy-handed Polish boxing game. But since he's been in the UFC, he's shown a multitude of skill sets. Solid submission guy. He could grind a decision if he has to. Or on this current run, he's been able to really, knock guys out in a hurry. And like I said earlier on another show, here we are once again, Jan Blachowicz, champion, a plus 185 underdog against the kid, stepping up a weight class in Israel Adesanya. But, this time I really do think it's for good reason. Anybody that's watched me for the last 3 years knows how I feel about Israel Adesanya. The kid is a special fighter. Really, really special. I sent out a tweet in 2017 that said, if this kid leaves the Australian Fighting Championship and comes to the UFC, he will be a champion in a year. And, he gets the fight of the year against Kelvin Gastelum. He picks up that interim belt, and the rest is history. He's been flawless ever since. So his striking game, obviously, he always gets compared to Anderson Silva. And that's because his striking game really is next level. From the angles that he cuts with his footwork to the angles that his strikes come from, it's rare. You just don't really see it from most fighters. On top of that, we know that, his speed is sick. And the power that comes from that really wide base that he has in the cage is legitimate. He knows exactly when to lead an exchange, and he knows exactly when to let his opponent lead an exchange simultaneously while he works off that counter check hook. So in my mind, it's really not about who are you going to bet in this fight. It's how you decide to back Israel Adesanya. Now, with that said, I do think that Jan Blachowicz is a really underrated fighter and live in this fight. I think he's liver than most people think that he is. But I think the real big problem here is how does he overcome the speed advantage that Israel Adesanya is going to have on him? At the end of the day, I think that's probably what sinks Jan Blachowicz. And he's in a really tough spot here because if he decides to stay at range, the faster Adesanya is going to pick him apart from the outside. And if Jan rushes the pocket with strikes like he tends to do, Izzy will probably sidestep and eat off the counter all night long. So I really do think that the only path to victory here for Jan Blachowicz is He's going to have to find a way to get inside that pocket and lean on his wrestling game and try to get Israel Adesanya down. But that is really hard to do against Adesanya. So I do think that Jan Blachowicz is a really durable fighter. And I thought that, Adesanya has value at plus 275 for him to win by decision, especially when you consider that Adesanya stepping up in weight. He could take a couple rounds to figure out Blachowicz's timing. He's probably going to be weary of that 205 power that Blachowicz is going to have in his hands. And my gut says this could be a boring fight for 5 rounds with Izzy staying on the outside, throwing his calf kicks. When he finds a spot to engage, he'll do so. Probably won't force it, though. And I've been going back and forth for 3 days now. Do you take him by decision at plus 275? Or does he find a way to get it done by knockout inside of 25 minutes at like plus 135? An hour ago, I was leaning that he finds a way somewhere in the later rounds, round 4, early round 5, to get a stoppage. But the more I think about it, man, I really do think that he is going to be more cautious than a lot of people think. And it leads me to think that he's going to win the fight by decision. So I'm gonna plant my flag on the fact that he wins by decision at plus 275, even though 45 minutes ago I was on the other side for him to win by stoppage. But you know what? The more I think about it, I think he'll be more cautious than people think. However, if he does win by knockout, I think it's going to be because of calf kicks that he throws for the entire fight that destroys Jan Blachowicz's lead leg. And Izzy might be able to get a late stoppage off of that. But if that doesn't happen, I think he's going to stay on the outside. I think he's going to be more cautious than people think. And I think that this fight could be a boring decision win for Israel Adesanya. So I'll take Izzy by decision at plus 275. And there you have it, your main event. All right, co-main event breakdown. Let's pull up the odds. What do we got? Amanda Nunes, Megan Anderson. Odds right now, Amanda Nunes minus 1,000. Megan Anderson, a plus 600 range. This fight, I've been saying it all week, very cut and dry to me. Amanda Nunes is the greatest of all time in women's MMA. I think she will be the greatest of all time for the majority of my lifetime. She is at least generational talent, maybe a 2-generation talent. She's that good. And if I'm being honest, the only fight that I'm even interested in watching her fight in is a third fight against Valentina Shevchenko. Other than that, these fights mean nothing to me. It's like, can we make some money? Because I don't think they're going to be very entertaining. So aside from the third installment of Nunes Shevchenko, I really don't even know why she steps in the cage, because I truly believe there's nobody that can touch her. I say it every single time. We know what Nunes is. She could knock you out in a minute like she did against Cyborg, who was supposedly the baddest woman on the planet. She could beat the ever-living crap out of you for 5 rounds and have no mercy like she did against Felicia Spencer, or she could chain takedown attempts and pound you into the mat for 5 rounds like she did against Germaine Durandamy. So I really do think it's how she wants to win the fight. She will win the fight, right? And also what everybody forgets is, she does have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that people forget about because everybody is focused on her striking game that is as dominant in the UFC as Mike Tyson was in boxing in his prime. She is that good. So, in my opinion, this would be the biggest upset in the history of the sport should she lose this fight. I think it would be bigger than Ronda against Holly Holm because the diehards knew how good of a boxer Holly was coming into that fight. And they knew Rousey had zero striking ability. So I think this would be a massive shock. Now, Megan Anderson is huge. She looks the part, but she is an underwhelming fighter, man. The girl does not have one quality win in her entire career. I said this in our Discord, our subscriber Discord. The best win that she has in her entire life is against Kat Zingano in a fight where Zingano got poked in the eye and was on the shelf for like 2.5 years because she needed eye surgery. That's the best win that you have, and you're going to walk in the cage and fight that beast? Good luck. Anderson should get destroyed. But the question is, how do you back Amanda Nunes, right? Will she take her down like Durandamy, or will she try to knock her out and make a statement like she did against Cyborg? My gut says that she's not. If she didn't respect the striking game of Chris Cyborg, I don't care how big Megan Anderson is. I don't care that she looks like an avatar. I don't see how she is going to respect the striking of Megan Anderson. I just don't see it. So looking at the method of victory numbers right now, Nunes is about even money to get the knockout, about plus 180 to win by submission, 5-1 to win by decision. Now, I said this on an earlier show. Considering the fact that 3 of her last 6 fights have ended by decision, plus 500 is not necessarily a bad number. I'm taking the chance that she just takes Anderson down and just grinds her out for 5 rounds to collect that nice price, right? On the other hand, she has knocked her opponents out 50% of the last 6 fights. So which way do you take? Or the one more option, you could take her by double chance, by knockout or by decision at minus 185, but that does leave you open to a submission win. And if I'm being honest, Anderson on the ground is awful. We saw that against Felicia Spencer. We saw it against Holly Holm, took her down at will. So Amanda Nunes can definitely get a submission win here, even though we really haven't seen her get a submission until since that rear naked choke against Miesha Tate. So what I think that I will probably do in this fight is I will probably throw a couple units on Nunes to win by knockout at even money, and I'll probably throw a unit on her to win by decision at plus 500. That way, if one of those two things happened, you're covered, and you'll profit in some type of way, barring a disaster should she get the submission win, which is a possibility. So, recap, I'm going to take the shot with Israel Adesanya by decision, plus 275. And I'm going to take Amanda Nunes by decision at plus 500 for a unit, and by knockout at even money for 2 units. That way, hopefully, we can lock in some kind of profit. And that's it, boys and girls. I will be on later today for subscribers. UFC 259 Fightcast. We'll live bet the card. We'll hang out all day. And then Sunday, I'll be on the Run Pure Bets YouTube channel for the public, live betting the Sunday NASCAR Cup race at Las Vegas. And that's it, boys. Other than that, I hope your action runs pure. I'll see you guys on Saturday. Bye.